How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Shout out to all the subscribers. Gratitude to anyone new. This video is going to be covering quite a few different fights. We're going to talk about Subriel Matias's victory, dominating victory against Roberto Ramirez. We're going to be talking about Keyshawn Davis's dominating victory versus Guastavo Lemos. And we're going to talk about Boots Ennis as well. I'll leave timestamps at the bottom of the video so you can check out all the little stages of this video. But we'll start off with Subriel Matias, who dominated Roberto Ramirez. I wasn't able to catch the fight live. I was actually working, but I was reading a lot about it, and then I watched the highlights back several times this morning. And I heard he got buzzed. Matias got buzzed in the first minute of the first round. And, you know, I don't know if that really matters anymore, because at the end of the day, you can't fight this guy. You can't hurt him like that where he's going to stop coming. And I'm almost convinced that you can't knock him out. So I can't really speak on what actually happened and how that happened. But I would say it doesn't really matter. The way you got to beat Matias is like Paro. You got to have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. You got to have a heart. You got to use, you know, your boxing IQ. You got to use a few tricks in there as well. And Ramirez didn't do any of that really. And I mentioned in the pre-fight, I was like, his biggest downfall is that, you know, I would say like he likes to fight. I don't think he really loves to fight like that. He just doesn't know how to not do it. You know what I mean? He gets caught up. He doesn't really know how to use his jab. He doesn't really know how to use his feet. He gets caught up in sloppy exchanges that doesn't favor him, because he's a much taller, rangier fighter. So you would think that he would just flash his jab, you know, but he didn't do that at all. And like I said, he gets caught up in these really uncoordinated combinations. But, you know, Matias, you know, he lacks coordination at times too, but it favors him because that's his zone. You know, you're in his zone and you're fighting him, and he's going to beat you at that. It's just that simple. But, you know, what I do like really about Matias's performance is the intensity. Absolutely, that was there. You know, it reminded me of when he fought Hawkins and a lot of other fighters, where he just abandons defense, walks straight down with his hands down. Once he smells fear and he sees a fear in a fighter's eyes and body language, I mean, it's so done. You know, I've said this loads of times. He feeds off of that, and the Hawkins fight was very similar, where like I said, he'll just come charging in and have no respect for you at all, and you know, the writing's on the wall. So ended up in the second round, he actually caught him with a body shot, you know, and then Ramirez went down off of a grazing left hook to the head too. But you know, he didn't want any more of that, did he? It's a disappointing end to the fact that I would have liked to see him not quit, but it is what it is. But you know, in terms of, it's nice to see Matias with that energy back, you know, and that ferocity. But what do we really know about what this performance will do moving forward? Because if he can maintain that energy and that kind of ferocity, then listen, he can absolutely become a world champion again, because that was missing in the Paro fight. Not completely, but you had like pockets here and there, you know. But he looked faster on his feet. You know, his footwork, I've said before, as clumsy as it can be sometimes, it's actually very athletic, and he can shift very quickly and close the distance, and you know, just comes charging in with his hands down. And maybe, like, you know, I don't know, it's so advantageous for him to do that, because it makes fighters really fight. And like I said, you have to have an astute game plan to be able to deal with that. I'm going to make a separate video on who he's going to fight next. I'll probably drop that tomorrow morning. I'll shoot it right after this and get it out, because I want to go through all the fighters. So I'm not going to talk about that right now. I want to just talk about potentially the future of like what he can still do. He can absolutely become a world champion again, and I really hope he does. But it's the question, will he get those fights again? Now, I think obviously a good thing for him to do, I'll touch on it briefly on who he can fight, is I think he should personally go to the Paro fight and, you know, get in the ring and like demand it. Because honestly, if you look at the champions, who is it? Tio, you got in there. I just made a video the other day. I can't believe I'm forgetting who the champions are. Puello, You know, Puyo's an interesting one, actually. That's not necessarily the best style for Matias. He's a very crafty, back foot fighter, southpaw, intelligent, you know. But I could... It's just how Matias is gonna what Matias approaches, because if that Matias from the Ponce fight, I think he beats them all, to be honest. And you know, it's a good start to see him back with so much energy and ferocity. But I'll talk on that in a separate video, because I would like to see him show up at the Liam Paro fight. And I'm favouring Paro to beat Hitchens, to be honest with you. But I'll do a separate video on that. But, you know, good news for Matias, and it's nice to see. Maybe he needed that rest. Maybe that loss was everything he needed, you know. Like I said, every fighter at some point has an off night. And, you know, it's not what you do then, it's what you do after it. And his time's kind of running out-ish, right? He's 32, but it's also like... He's the kind of fighter that, you know, everybody said as soon as he lost, he's like a hype job or overrated. But yet, you know, he's probably going to find it hard to get fights. So how overrated is he if nobody wants to get in the ring with him? You know what I mean? But I hope he does get a decent fight. And I hope he does make it to the top again. Because, you know, like, as I said, the 140-pound division hasn't quite been the same without him. There's something's not the spark, the passion, the ferocity, you know, the energy that comes with Matias fights. And it's kind of taken a little bit of a sidestep, that division, but hopefully he can come back and get the fights that he needs to, because the sport's better with him in it. He's a blessing to the sport, let's be honest. Another blessing to the sport, Keyshawn Davis dismantled Guastavo Lemos in 2 rounds with a sensational performance in front of his home fans. That's how you make a star out of somebody, or that's how you make yourself a star.
4 pounds at the weigh-in. There it is. There it is.
Davis, and down goes Lemos. Big ball or not.
Against the wall, really. Not really. He was a favourite, but in terms of with the Lemos coming in overweight, he'd already sold these tickets. He had to kind of accept this fight. He was put in a situation where he couldn't really say no, and he delivered beyond his expectations, in the sense he even admitted that he wasn't, not admitted, but he didn't think he was going to get the stoppage. Because Lemos is a tough guy. No one's ever stopped him like that. He's strong, durable, tenacious, wild puncher. In the keys to victory, I actually pointed out, I was like, Keyshawn's going to have to use his jab, upstairs, downstairs, to the head, to the body, move his feet, use his range control. It's exactly what happened. And I said, Guastavo Lemos, he telegraphs his punches so wildly. I mean, anybody that knows anything about boxing can see that a mile away. And I was like, the biggest difference for me for Hitchens in not able to temper Lemos was the ability. He didn't really want to counterpunch. You know, I was like, you got to be careful when you are trying to do that, because if you get the counterpunch wrong, you can end up on the wrong side of a massive overhand right. But he got it right. You know, there was that moment he opened up like that and bang, he shot a sneaky right hand right in, dropped him. Beautiful shot. Keyshawn Davis. I'll talk about whether he's ready for Tank in a minute, because I think he is. If people are suggesting he might not be, but definitely I think he is, because his defense is so good too. But dropped him with that right hand, and then he started to fight a little bit, exchanged a little bit, caught him with a left hook, I think it was, body shots, mixed it up. I mean, he looked fantastic. You know, that's a finish too. Real great finish, real great counter punching, great defense, ring generalship, jab, move, control, range control. Excellent performance from Keyshawn Davis, and he's got major charisma, and that's another part of making him. He's going to be a superstar if he keeps on doing this, because charisma, selling tickets, knocking guys out. He's got that talk as well. You know, a lot of people like that, and it's like, if you can back it up, I mean, he's gonna, you know, he'll move the needle quite far if he can bring himself back to the hometown. I think it was Norfolk, Virginia. Build his name up even further there. Sold something like 10,000 tickets. It's amazing, man. Respect to Keyshawn Davis, definitely. Is he ready for Tank? As I said, yes. Why? Because of his defense and because he really believes in himself. I'm not saying he could beat Tank, by the way, because Tank's IQ and power is on another level. So you got to be really careful. But as I've said before, Keyshawn Davis is like a 65-year-old wise man in a 20. I think he's 26 right now. I said that saying a couple of years ago, but you know, he just thinks very maturely. Good team behind him, and he's got a bit of power as well. You know, Great kid, love it. Great for the sport, charisma, knockout artist, awesome. We'll be following him more. So big up Keyshawn Davis. Now moving on to Boots Ennis, another blessing to the sport. Didn't look great last night, got the win. You know, unanimous decision against Karen. I forget his last name, or I can't pronounce it, but you know who I'm talking about. Competitive fight, to be honest, at times, you know, Karen definitely came in with a different attitude, different game plan, looked in shape. Apparently he didn't really have the best camp beforehand, he was saying, leading up to this fight, I think. But you could tell he was mentally strong, he was mentally there, had a good game plan, asserted himself, believed in himself, and he came to win. And, you know, respect to Karen. And maybe this win will age very well, because you know, Boots is taking a lot of criticism right now, rightfully so. There were some glaring issues, especially with his footwork, getting hit so many times with the same punches, really. A lot of left hooks coming in, right crosses were landing on Boots. You know, his inside work at times looked a little bit, I don't know what the word is, just like, I think his footwork, this is my personal opinion, I think because he switch hits and loosely flows awesomely a lot of the time, right? He's very athletic and just gifted fighter, tremendously gifted. In fact, Karen said that he was really hurt and power, that Boots has got some serious power. And so, you know, that's, I mean, how he stood up to all those shots. I mean, Boots has got a chin as well, you know, and this is like, you don't really want to see a top level fighter get hit like that, clean, flush, that many times. If he goes up to 154 and gets cracked like that by Ortiz, I mean, he'll get knocked out, to be honest with you. I'm not saying he couldn't get to Ortiz first, but Ortiz would absolutely, like, really put some hurting on Boots if he went up to 54 and fought like that. He's got to clean up the footwork, in my opinion, you know. And like, he'll just, like, if you notice, when he's out of range, he just walking into range, he just walks front foot crossing over, crossing his feet, and then and that's part of, I think, why when he switch hits so much, sometimes it confuses him, you know. And then he ends up on the inside, squares up quite a little bit, and Karen was able to get angles on him a little bit, and Karen's subtle little defense was actually very cute, you know, very, very fundamentally more sound, I think, Karen than Boots. I think he lacks some fundamentals, especially with his footwork. And you know, it just was, I think, the pressure of being at home. Regis Prograis just mentioned that. He said he thought Boots was, and he's someone that just can talk on that from his New Orleans homecoming a couple years ago, maybe. And you could tell that. I know Eddie Hearn was mentioned, you know, he's going to get Karen out of here in 3 rounds pre-fight. I think I heard someone say that Hearn said that. I didn't hear the interview myself, but I can imagine Hearn saying something like that, because Hearn really, like, for him, Eddie Hearn, the promoter, the best scenario is, you know, a highlight knockout or 3 rounds and have the crowd up, and that favors him, that benefits him. But I don't think it really benefits the fighter, because it can get in their head and they can try to knock, you know, that old saying, let the knockout come. Well, he didn't do that at all. And when you try to force a knockout, it tends to not come. And that's, I think, what happened last night, and a lot of other things too. And not to mention, as I said, Karen, you know, this win could age very, very, very well, because I can see him with that performance giving a lot of top welterweights a run for their money and maybe beating some of them, especially the champs. I mean, him and Barrios, after that performance, you see that as a close fight. Stanionis too, Brian Norman. I don't know. I wouldn't just completely not, like, you know, I'd give Karen a good chance of beating those guys. But, you know, Boots, he's talked about moving up to 154. He did talk about undisputed titles a couple of years ago. But getting those fights, obviously, he might have to hang around. But if he does go up to 154, he's got some defense issues to really, really, really tighten up. Because getting hit that many times, I think he might have been a little bit. I mean, look, at the end of he was standing up in the corner. And he must be in really good shape, to be honest with you. They're both in really good shape. They were throwing a lot of punches. They were working really hard in there. And, you know, he looked like they were both in pretty good shape. Respect to them, man. Superhuman beings, these boxers are. They really are. But you cannot, for your own health and for your own career, take that many shots You know, no way. At the elite level, man, with someone that can punch harder. See, Karen, when he was moving so much, he wasn't really sitting down on his punches. All right, sitting down on your punches is a boxing term where you really kind of bite the ground and use the ground for leverage and really get the, you know, the most out of those shots and like dig them. And you get somebody like Ortiz digging shots onto Boots' chin. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's got a good chin, but you don't, like I said, you don't want to see too many fighters taking that much punishment, because they'll be out the game before they know it. And you know, I just think too, like he relies so much on his athleticism too. I just think he tends to rush a lot of stuff, and you know, they don't know if there's really a full game plan either, other than just be better than him and out athletic someone and out power, out speed, and you know, maybe a performance like this is a good thing, you know, because it is a time to address the issues, you know, which they were there in the first one, in the Karen fight, the first one, where, you know, the footwork issues, cross walking, and, you know, like it just some footwork issues basically that they didn't really clean them up. So you do hope that the criticism is read and actually acknowledged, because that's the sign of I think, developing wiser fighter, where they can look at things objectively and go, right, we need to improve these things. So perhaps it's a good thing that, you know, he didn't perform as well as he could have, because I always like to say that. And even I'll talk about Abdullah Mason as well, who was he's a fantastic fighter, and you know, he got dropped twice.
You see Vasquez leaning forward.
Oh! Oh, and he gets rocked by a right hand. Oh, uppercut from Abdullah. Oh, you hold me, you better hold me tight.
But you know, because he's so really kind of a little bit overzealous to get the knockout as well. But he's got some decent, well, very good power, crisp, hard puncher, you know. And you know, he got caught coming in. It's like when you're breaking into someone's house, like, and they've got a guard dog right there. You know, they're gonna let you know they're there, but you know, he can still break into the house. But there's gonna be consequences on the way in. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. But he still answered some questions where he got off the deck, you know, and he carried on with that fighting spirit, and he got the job done. And then he got caught again, and these things are okay. I don't have a problem with people getting dropped. It's what happens after that. Have you corrected these issues? Maybe come in with a few more feints, a little bit more head movement. No, don't be so overzealous, you know. Bit of defensive responsibility. In fact, back to Boots, that is something that is massively missing from his game. He does it sometimes, you know, with his flashiness, but often he'll just be there with his head on the line, and you know, he'll just be getting caught flush with straight shots right there. And his because I think he's just so trying to get the knockout, trying to hurt guys, which is all good. The crowd's there, the promoter's there, so it's understandable. But you know, you've got to throw in some defensive responsibilities and slow it down a little bit, and stop rushing. You know, do your thing, and you can probably be, you know, I think the fact that Karen was in such good shape and so fundamentally sound as well, I think that caused Boots a few issues. And maybe the element of surprise, you know, people were saying, was Boots looking past Karen? Possibly. We've seen that happen with fighters lately. Tim Tszyu looking past background, you know. You get caught off guard, and all of a sudden you're in the fight, and then they're fighting way better than you thought, and it's like, you know, making the adjustments mid-fight. I know him and his dad as well, Boots and his dad were a little bit on the different pages. I watched the fight this morning, but I didn't have the commentary on, so I don't know what they were saying, but I did hear him in the post-fight where he was saying he wasn't really listening or something to that nature. But, you know, I actually, you know, as good as, like, criticism, not good, but as warranted as criticisms are, they are good because of the opportunity you get to fix things, you know. So I'm not gonna you know, criticize him too much, but there was a lot to do. But it's what happens next. That's the thing. What happens with Abdullah Mason? Is he gonna come in so, you know, so hastily? That's the beauty of boxing, and that's the beauty of watching a fight back and going back to the gym and improving. But anyway, tremendous talent. Boots Ennis gets the best out of himself. The whole just ethos: work hard, train, box. That's all they do. you got to respect it, really. So it'll be interesting to see what he does after this. But don't be too rushed to get up to 154 because you cannot be getting hit like that many times. But anyway, that's it from me. Let me know your thoughts, guys. If I missed anything, I'm sure I did. There's a lot to talk about. There was Bam as well, tremendous performance. So I watched that. I was actually watching that fight live, and that was a sensational, beautiful pivoting knockout at the end there with his footwork and his balance and his weight pressure too. You're never out of position. That's the thing. Boots was often out of position. Bam, high guard, coming in, beautiful jab, walking him down, countering, beautiful performance. So, but I'm sure I've missed a ton of stuff because there's been so many fights on lately. It's hard to keep up, you know, it really is. But I'll do this video tomorrow about Matias and who he can fight. And that is it. I hope you guys have a great weekend or the rest of it. And I have a great week next week. Peace and love. I'm out.
Boxing.
On it.